and welcome to the channel. My name is Annalisa and today I'm doing two tags. One is the Lucy Worsley book tag and one is the A Witch's Brew book tag. Kara of Wild Book Garden created the Lucy Worsley tag because she really enjoys the books and shows that Lucy Worsley creates. The first question is, Lucy Worsley's shows are known for being equal parts fun and informative. What's a nonfiction book that taught you a lot and was also very engaging or fun to read? And for that I picked Monster, She Wrote, The Women Who Pioneered Horror and Speculative Fiction by Lisa Kruger and Melanie R. Anderson. And this is profiles and information about a lot of the women who did this. Mary Shelley is in here, of course, but also a lot of people I had never heard of before, and it was so interesting to find out about all of their lives and why they wrote and what of theirs was published and what wasn't, and whether or not they had fame while they were alive and whether or not they have fame now. A lot of them are never spoken about because they were women, and history books and English literature books written by men don't want to let you know that women ever did anything of value. I really like the inserts that have these quotes, and there are also little reading lists after each entry about an author that tell you what they wrote and where you can find them, because of course a lot of these are out of print and so a little bit hard to find. There are also quite a few little illustrations, and in addition to finding about their lives, you also get to know how their work fit into the overall development of the genre. Like, I learned a lot about Gothic novels that I never knew before, and the way that it was separated into digestible chunks and had those inserts and little sections that told you not just really dry information but like details about their lives really made it engaging to me. Number 2 is the shows always include a few segments where Lucy acts in costume as some of the historical or literary figures, a queen, a servant, a character in the novel, etc. Share one of your favorite plays or a book featuring theater in some way. And so for that I want to say The Hunchback of Notre Dame, which is a book, several different movies, and also has been done in play form or theater form. I got to see our local players actually put on a performance of it, and it was really fun. They did a lot of elements from the Disney version, but they also brought in some darker elements from the original, as well as changing a whole character, the Romani man who sings at the beginning of the Disney version, into a whole much more important character, and also gender swapped him. So I really liked that, and the acting was beautiful, and I really loved how they did a couple of the songs like Out There and Hellfire, so that was awesome. Number 3 is, it's hard to deny Lucy Worsley's passion for what she does. She is clearly doing her dream job and her enthusiasm is irresistible. Pick 2 books with a character who is passionate about something like a hobby or area of study. One interest you share and one you don't, but the book was able to make you understand why the character loves it so much. And for that I picked first Temeraire and Lawrence from the Temeraire series. That is a 35 or so year old naval captain from a alternate history version of England, where the time is the Napoleonic Wars but with dragons, and Temeraire is the dragon. And they like to read together, specifically because Temeraire is too big to hold a book. Lawrence will read to him, and I definitely share the hobby of reading. Then we have A Kind of Spark, in which a middle grade autistic girl butts up against the people in her town when she wants to make a memorial for the supposed witches who were killed there, and she has a special interest in sharks, specifically sharks. Not dolphins, not other sea creatures. She likes sharks. And we were given a fair amount of information about why she likes sharks and how versatile they are. So that was quite a bit of fun too. But I personally don't care that much about sharks. Number 4, Lucy Worsley's commentary always skillfully balances history and conscience. She keeps true to the original material while also providing necessary context and humanity. What's an old book, however you define old, that surprised you with how modern and forward-thinking its ideas were? And for that, one is Jane Austen's work, all of it, because she was in the early 1800s and was very feminist. Another place I didn't expect to find it, and I can't tell you where to find this information because I have forgotten it. But while I was in a American history class in college, we read all primary sources rather than textbooks. Primary sources are like journals, letters, censuses from the actual historical period you're studying, rather than textbooks that use those primary sources to like present a cohesive narrative. And so that way you are a lot less likely to get a lot of prejudices and whoever's writing the history's commentary. And so one of the primary sources we read was of some monks who were living in Canada, and they were sent as missionaries to the indigenous people who live there, but were also keeping to themselves a fair amount, as monks are wont to do. And we read some reports that the monks in Canada sent back to their superiors in Europe, and the way that they talked about the indigenous people seemed to me to be very respectful, and there's a lot of descriptions of their culture and like their hygiene methods and how they interacted with each other that was spoken of in a positive light. And obviously there was some imperialism going on, that these monks were coming from Europe to go and live on other people's land. Whenever we read history books about those times, it's kind of presented as though everyone from Europe saw indigenous people as inferior and dirty, and it kind of presents things as though the two peoples were monoliths and that different opinions didn't exist, and that no one had ever heard of being tolerant of other people's cultures until like the 1970s, and this was back in like the 1600s. So it was really nice to see that aspect of humanity existing way before modern times. Number 5, a very British romance. Books with any kind of romantic element are often incorrectly dismissed as superficial. Share a book that had more depth than you expected. And I tend to go into books expecting them to be kind of deep, and I'm kind of medium disappointed when they're not. So I'm usually surprised the other direction, but that's partially because I have happily found that the romances that my mom reads and passes on to me tend to involve quite a bit of deeper topics. A lot of them are feminist and talk about how women's lives were difficult, and tend to have their heroes subvert sexist ways of thinking, and that's one of the reasons that the heroines are attracted to them. And some of them, more than others, go into this heroine would really like to run a business and she's avoiding getting married because if she gets married, she legally doesn't exist as her own separate person, and she can't sign anything business-wise. She can't even have power over her own money. She could have like money set into a trust separate for her, but her husband would always be able to access it if he really wanted to. And I really enjoyed that book and the commentary on that. But the one that I will talk about is Tempest by Beverly Jenkins. I've read several by Beverly Jenkins, and I've noticed that they all tend to have these currents of both feminism and also racial justice. And this particular one addresses the sexism that makes people think really badly of the hero's sister, the sexism that makes shop owners and bankers not want to deal with her and only be willing to deal with her husband, as this is one of those arranged marriage, fall in love after you get married trope books that I really enjoy. And this actually talks about racism against a group of Chinese people who were employed, I believe, by the railroad in a real life incident that she has brought into her fictional world. And Beverly Jenkins also tends to put context for her stories and the historical research that she did at the end, so we get to find out about what parts of her story were inspired by real life, and I really appreciate that. 6 Wives of Lucy Worsley. Though you might have a favorite, each of these women is given the sympathy she deserves. This is a show/documentary on the 6 wives of Henry VIII. Share a book that had multiple main characters you loved. And Kara brought up Spinning Silver, or I definitely would, because that is one of my favorite books that really epitomizes multiple women being all strong and powerful and interesting and flawed and generally amazing all in their own ways and working together, and I love it so much. But I also thought of 2 other books. One of those is Deathless Divide, which is the second book in the Dread Nation duology, and both characters are present in the first book, but it becomes a dual perspective story in the second book. And so we have Catherine and Jane, who have very different attitudes about the world and have had very different experiences, because Catherine is significantly lighter skinned and is white passing, although they are both black. And it's a zombie apocalypse story, so there's a lot of fighting zombies going on, and they're both very proficient with physical fighting, and I think that's really cool. And I also love their personalities, even though they are quite different from each other. And then also A Song Below Water, which I read a little bit earlier in the summer, and it is also dual perspective and is about family sisters who are navigating magic in their lives with being black girls in high school in America. And I really love the magic that was involved with both girls, and also how powerfully they were tied together, much like Catherine and Jane. They cared a great deal about each other and derived a lot of emotional support, whereas in Deathless Divide there's a lot of like physical saving each other's lives support. In this other book it was mostly emotional support, and it showed a lot how important that is. Number 7, Suffragettes with Lucy Worsley. Sources about the women's suffrage movement have often been limited in scope. Recommend a book that covered a famous era, event, etc. from a different perspective. And for that I've picked Esperanza Rising, which I'm pretty sure is set during the Great Depression in America, but it is about this girl and her family who were well off in Mexico until her father died, and then her uncles wanted to steal all the family wealth from her mother, and her mother couldn't do anything about it because women didn't have much power or rights. So their little immediate family ran away to America, where at least particular people wouldn't be trying to kill them, and maybe they could get jobs, and they ended up being farm workers somewhere in the southwestern part of the states. I don't remember which state right now. And it was about how migrant workers were treated there, and how there were mass deportations. When the Depression hit, there wasn't enough money, or at least not as much as when all of these migrant workers had first been hired, and so they were paid less and less, and then if they striked to try to get enough money to live on, they were mass deported, no matter their immigration status. Even if they had legal papers and everything, those were stolen from them by white authorities, and they were just taken away on trains and dumped back in Mexico. But that was a perspective and something that went on during the Depression that I never learned about, despite it happening in America when I was learning about the Depression in my American history studies. Number 8, Lucy Worsley's Royal Myths and Secrets. Several of the episodes have centered on showing how famously ineffectual or silly women, such as Queen Anne or Marie Antoinette, were in fact much more intelligent and capable than history gives them credit for. Name one of your favorite competent female characters. I was like, Kara, I can't name one of my favorite competent female characters. So I'm just going to give you a really quick list. And this isn't just my favorite characters, it's the one who are specifically competence is something that is a major factor of their stories. So we have Eve Dallas, a police lieutenant, Amelia Peabody, an Egyptologist, Lady Trent, naturalist, dragonologist is what she is. She studies dragons. Harriet Tubman, who was a real person, but I read a book about her called The Tubman Command, which was fictionalized but heavily based on reality, and it was specifically about her command of a spy network during the Civil War. 5, Grania, who was a pirate captain, pirate admiral, honestly. She commanded an entire fleet, plus was ruler over quite a large section of Western Ireland. Blue Star, who is the cat, who is, where are those books? Behind the leaves. The warrior books, which are about cats. But Blue Star, she was the clan leader of the main cat character's clan, and she was very competent both in a military leadership way and also in a ordering the camp around, making sure everybody has food type of way. And then Jane Rolland, who is a military commander from the Temeraire series, who does an excellent job and is like somewhere around 35 to 40, and she was the first woman that I ever read about being like fully officially in command of a big swath of anyone's army. And so that was really special to me when I first read it. So that was the last question. I'm looking at the list of people that Kara has already tagged, and I don't think she tagged Julie from the Hungry Bookworm, who I know is interested in historical fiction. She has done quite a few really cool videos on the Tudors specifically. Like, she has like cooked Tudor recipes and stuff like that, in addition to looking at it from a literary angle. So I would definitely recommend her historical fiction videos. And I'm pretty sure Nicole from Nicole's Bookish Nook reads historical fiction, so I'll take her as well as the other Christine that reads. No pressure if you don't feel like it. Now on to the other tag, created by Locked Booktician, whose actual name I will look up and it will be in the description. 1 second. Yes, oh dear, get that off. How gauche. We're thumbnailing right now. Okay, so anyway, the first question is to name 5 famous witches in 10 seconds. And to be fair, I have been thinking about this for a while, but I will start with the Wicked Witch of the East. The good one's from the north, right? And then there's one from the west. Wicked Witch of the West. I don't remember if the East was good or bad. I don't know how well known they are, but also the 4 witches from Practical Magic, which is one of my favorite movies, and I really want more movies where the witches are the good guys, especially cozy ones like that. So if y'all know of any other witchy movies that have the vibes of Practical Magic, I would really appreciate knowing about those. I know I'm chatting and not just naming these in 10 seconds, but anyway. Also the Hocus Pocus witches and Sabrina. And the one who went like this. And I'm still counting those because I can't remember people's names. It's just a thing. Second question, what is one ingredient used in a witch's brew? Eye of Newt is pretty classic, and Tail of Salamander. But I really like flower witches and / garden witches, so like I like lavender and pumpkin flowers and stuff like that. And I have like 3 books that I'm reading in a row that are about garden witches, so I'm enjoying that a lot. What is your favorite spell that you found in a book? And a lot of my books about magic that I read don't have like written out spells that have words, but I really like the one in A Dash of Trouble that made the cookies get up off the sheet and fly around. That was cool. And I also quite like the spell in Heart's Blood, because there's a spell that is done at the end of the book that is a rework of a different spell, and so they had to go through how to do the opposite of everything the first one did, and I really liked how they worked that out. Name a book that has green on the cover. I have a shelf of green books. I have only read a couple of them. I really like The Inklings and also Howl's Moving Castle. I guess I read The Castle in the Attic when I was a little kid, but I don't remember the plot at all. Also, I have 3 green books on this shelf, which are one of the Temeraire ones, one of the Lord of the Rings ones, and one of the Narnia ones, because all those series decided to go rainbow with their, you know, bunch of different colors for their spines. If you could have tea with a fictional character with magical powers, who would it be and why? Mate, I would love to have tea with almost any character with magical powers. I kind of want to have tea with my own characters, but those books aren't published, so I don't think they count. But let's go with Cersei, because she's a good guy witch, and she also spends a lot of time alone, so I think we would appreciate each other's company. Plus she has a pet lioness, and I would like to pet the lioness. What is your favorite series or movie that has witches and practical magic, pretty much? Name 2 witches of color in either a book, book series, movie, or television show. This book doesn't call them witches, but I'm calling them garden witches because they put plants in a potion and it has effects on the person who drinks it. Potion makers are witches, right? So The Secret of a Heart Note by Stacey Lee. It is said in the book that the main character has lots of different races mixed together, one of which is Chinese. Then there are the witches from Akata Witch and Akata Warrior, who are Nigerian and American Nigerian. Then there's What Kind of Witch or Warlock Would You Be? I would love to make potions. I'm very into potions. Cauldron, potion bottles are my decor year-round. So preferably like a garden witch who makes potions with flowers. Though a baking witch, like from A Dash of Trouble, would also be good. I'll take anything, quite frankly. I would love to be a witch. Bonus is to describe an alternative character development in regards to your favorite magical fictional character. I would say that I would like to have Maleficent be a good guy, kind of like they're doing with the current reworks, although I don't know if those are actually going to end happily. So I would give her a story that ends happily because she's awesome, because she can turn into a dragon, and she deserves a happily ever after. Speaking of witchy movies and shows, by the way, I tried watching The Good Witch, but it was too corny in the first episode. I would love to know if it gets better. I may watch more of it anyway this Halloween season, because I would really love for that to be a good witchy show. It was just so corny in the first episode, I couldn't keep going, but I will try it again. Oh, tags for that one. How about The Awkward Book Nerd? Et tu Brody. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!